He was a prodigy that could control all the elements, but his party didn't realize how strong he was, and kicked him out because they thought he was useless. The story begins as we see a boy named Alec as he fishes, but he's interrupted by a man named Eldis, who asks him if he likes magic. He starts training Alec, and as he teaches him how to use a spell, he tells Alec to think about the friends he'll make in the future, and imagine that they're in trouble. Alec follows his instructions and manages to cast the spell, but he thinks it was a difficult one, since it took him the whole day to learn it. But Eldis notes that it would take most people a whole month to master it, and Alec is excited to learn another spell, but he tells Alec they're done for the day. He decides to rest while fishing instead, but Alec is annoyed since he wants to keep practicing his spells. Eldis mentions that Alec has a talent for magic, so even if he doesn't do anything, he'll become a first-rate mage. He wonders why Eldis is teaching him, but before he can answer, he feels a fish pulling on his rod, and he has no idea how to catch it. So he asks Alec for help, and he finds Eldis weird, since he seems to know nothing but magic, and Alec helps him catch the fish. Alec continues to learn magic, but one day, Eldis tells him he's leaving the capital, and he advises Alec to never become a court magician. He wonders why Eldis taught him magic, so he reveals that it's because he owes Alec's late mother a favor, and he watches Eldis as he leaves. Several years later, Alec finds information about Eldis and realizes that he graduated top of his class. He became a court magician, but ended up getting fired, and Alec wonders if that's the reason why he looked sad. Alec decides to follow in Eldis's steps, and he vows to change the court, but after he becomes a court magician, he ends up getting fired as well. The Crown Prince Regulus reminds him that his job is to assist them with his magic, but he didn't help them during the last battle. Regulus mentions that he was fighting on the front lines, while the other members did their part, but all Alec did was cast support magic. He tries to explain the reasons behind his actions, but Regulus refuses to hear him out, and thinks Alec only uses support magic because it's all he can use. Their party member Lenny notes that Alec is always telling them to retreat, so she thinks he's just afraid of going deeper into the dungeon. She mentions that they let him join the party on the king's orders, but Regulus has reached his limit, and he's sick of clearing the dungeon with deadweight like Alec. Regulus knows that Alec excelled at the Magic Academy and became a court magician, but he was never able to achieve anything without getting help from others. Alec mentions that he wants to talk to him, but Regulus notices that he's carrying a dagger, which makes him angry since commoners aren't allowed to carry weapons, so he takes it from Alec. He thinks he'll need weapons on the floors ahead, which annoys Regulus, and he notes that in his party, everyone should just do what they're told. He removes the robe Alec is wearing, telling him he isn't worthy to be a court magician, and they leave him behind. After that, Alec thinks about how he researched everything to make sure he knew what Regulus needed, because he knows that if they go to the 30th floor, Regulus might end up dying. He tried to help them in every way he could, since he wanted them to trust him, but he realized that it was all for nothing. He thinks there might still be time to help Regulus, because the king hired him to help the party, so he goes to the castle with a plan. But the guards stop him from entering, since he's been stripped of his title as court magician, and Lenny reminds him that he was fired, so he's just a commoner now. She thinks the rumor that he went to the 68th floor on his own is completely false, since no one has ever gone past the 38th floor. He tells her to give his message to the king, because it will help Regulus, but she tears it to pieces and orders the guards to take him away. As Alec is walking in the city, he thinks he failed Eldis, because even though he did his best for the 4 years he was a court magician, he still couldn't change anything. He runs into his friend named Yora, who immediately hugs him, and he tells her everything that happened. He apologizes to her since he isn't in the best mood, even though they haven't met each other for 4 years. But she mentions that she also hates it there, since everyone still believes the old-fashioned stuff about commoners and nobles. He's worried that someone will hear them because she's talking loudly, but she tells him to calm down, since there's no one around them. She tells him she's glad about everything that happened to him, and reminds him of the time she said she would make sure he joins her party. She reveals that the reason she came to the capital was to invite him to come with her, and he tells her he's just a useless court magician, but she mentions that he's the only one her party needs. She notes that all of his previous party members plan to come to the capital and try to convince him to join them, but they won't force him if he still wants to be a court magician. He cries hearing this, and he agrees to go with her, so she welcomes him back to her party. As they ride a carriage, Yura tells Alec he can sleep if he likes, since they're still far from their destination. She wonders if something's bothering him, but he's just thinking about how Eldest was right, since he told him to never become a court magician. Meanwhile, Lenny tells Regulus that Alec has left the capital, and he mentions that Alec was the greatest student the Academy ever produced. So he was excited to work with him, but it turns out that Alec was just a coward. She notes that he'll be replaced by the son of a noble, and she thinks that after they conquer the dungeon, the whole world will know Regulus's name. Alec and Yura reach the dungeon city of Fizel, and he's surprised to see several adventurers there, so she mentions that it's a great city, since the people there aren't prejudiced against the adventurers. She's excited for him to register at the guild, but when they go there, the receptionist Misha immediately rejects him. She explains that he needs a license to go past the 30th floor, and it's only given to members who have been with the guild for at least 2 years. Yura notes that a girl named Kara was supposed to deal with the situation, but Misha mentions that she just came and threatened her. Yura feels dumb for letting Kara handle such an important task, and she tells Alec that their party is on the 52nd floor, so they can't wait for 2 years. She thinks they should go to the early floors to warm him up, but they both start struggling after they reach the 2nd floor. She uses a boost spell on him, and he defeats the monsters around them, but their number just keeps increasing. He thinks it's because something must have disturbed their nest, so she makes a shield in front of her and starts moving forward. He tries to stop her from going in alone, but she knows that he isn't at his full strength, since the monsters usually aren't a problem for him. He tells himself that he isn't a court magician anymore, so he must do anything to save Yura, and he starts shooting fireballs at the monsters. They immediately surround him, so Yura protects him with her barrier, and he summons lightning to wipe them out. A giant worm suddenly appears and grabs Yura, but Alec burns it to a crisp without worrying for her, since he has faith that she'll be able to protect herself, and she's glad that he's back to his usual self. We go back to when they fought a monster during their academy days, and it attacks Yura's party with its elemental breath, so she blocks it with her magic. She's exhausted since the monster is using all 5 elements, but Alec combines the elements and fires a powerful energy beam, which destroys the monster in an instant. So everyone celebrates their victory, and they're glad that they were able to set a record by clearing the 68th floor. At the Academy's graduation ceremony, all the other students notice that Alec and his party aren't there, and everyone knows that they went to set a new record for the dungeon floors cleared. They wonder if something happened to them, and the students think they shouldn't have taken on such a risky task, but they suddenly arrive. Everyone's shocked to see that they have cleared the 68th floor, and a girl named Rosa presents them with their degrees. They start calling her by her nickname, which makes her angry, and she punches their heads, but they still keep teasing her. After that, Alec tells his party members that he plans to become a court magician, and Kara thinks it's a good decision since it will earn him a lot of money. He wants to make sure he earns enough to put his father at ease, since he raised Alec on his own after his mother died, so he wants to repay him, and he also needs to do it for Eldest. He mentions that he always thought they would end up becoming adventurers, but he's realized that it doesn't have a stable income. One of the party members named Rain notes that if Alec joined them, they could become the strongest party, since they're the 4 greatest geniuses the Magic Academy has ever seen. Kara tells him to stop praising himself, which makes him annoyed, since he thinks he would have graduated as the top student if he were in any other year. Yura mentions that even though they're choosing different paths, they'll come to recruit him once they become a famous party, and he promises to team up with them in the future. In the present, Yura throws a welcome party for Alec, but she gets drunk and starts complaining about how he almost burned her with his last attack. She continues yelling at him, but she eventually falls asleep, so he puts his coat on her to make sure she doesn't catch a cold. A man named Stans interrupts Alec, who ignores anything he's saying, which makes him angry, and he tries to hit Alec with a bottle, but he makes a shield to protect himself. Stans reveals that he knows who Alec is, so he wonders what an elite like him is doing there, and he shows Alec a license. He mentions that he'll give it to him as an apology for soaking him with alcohol, but Alec needs to show his magic first, and he wonders who Stans is, so Yura notes that he's the guild master. Stans takes them to the guild's underground training arena, and he mentions that Alec needs to impress him with magic to get the license. Yura thinks it isn't the right time, since they just got back from the dungeon, but Alec doesn't mind it, because he doesn't want to waste such an opportunity. Stans properly introduces himself, and Alec realizes that he's a powerful mage who once led an S-ranked party, but he notes that it was a long time ago. As they start fighting, Alec attacks him with a lightning spell, and he counters with water balls, but they both dodge each other's attacks. Stans uses an enhancement spell to increase his speed, and he starts running around Alec, who's surprised by how fast he is. He tries to punch Alec, who blocks with his shield, but he's still sent flying into a wall. He starts smiling, which confuses Stans, so he notes that he was just thinking about how he's gotten into a habit of always trying to support others since he was a court magician. But he isn't bound by those rules anymore, so he makes a sword out of his mana and rushes towards Stans, who throws water balls at him, but he cuts them with his sword. Stans rushes towards him, but he rains down lightning from above and attacks Stans with his sword. Stans is impressed by his moves, so Alec thinks he has passed the test, but Stans notes that he's just getting started. He summons 2 dragon claws and charges at Alec, who manages to dodge the attack, but he's surprised to see that Stans has destroyed the ground. Alec hits him with a lightning attack, but Stans tells him that won't work, and as Alec blocks with his shield, Stans mentions that he won't be able to win by just running away. He starts using the claw's special ability to heal himself, and Alec attacks him to make sure he doesn't recover, but Stans tells him to try harder. Alec dodges one of his punches and lands a hit, but Stans continues attacking him like nothing happened, so Alec uses his shield to defend himself and stabs Stans with his sword. But the sword couldn't break through his skin, and he tries to crush Alec, but he dodges the attack and lands another hit. But Alec falls to the ground as he runs out of mana, and Stans notes that the fight is over, but Rain arrives and calls Stans pathetic, since he was forced to use his most powerful skills. But he tells Rain to be silent, and notes that he was going to pass Alec anyway. After that, Rain notes that he heard something happen to Alec in the court, and he mentions that he's always been angry at how the people in the capital think a person's lineage and title is all that matters. He's amazed that Alec put up with it for 4 years, but he's annoyed at how Yora is looking at him, and she notes that she agrees with him, but he tells her to be quiet. Misha enters the room and starts to panic, so Stans pulls her out, and Yora wonders if something's wrong. She tells Rain about everything that happened to Alec, which makes him angry that he had to babysit Regulus, and he wasn't even allowed to carry a weapon. She mentions that they called his support magic useless, which confuses Rain, because Alec never used such magic, which means he had to learn it from scratch just to work with Regulus. She notes that they told him he's useless and banished him from their party, which makes Rain even angrier, but Alec finally wakes up. Yora tells him he got the license, which makes him happy since he can go with them to the dungeon, but Rain thinks they should get revenge on Regulus first. Alec is against the idea since he isn't that upset about it, and Yora reminds Rain that they aren't allowed to fight other parties. Alec notes that the best way to get back at Regulus is for him to have fun adventuring, and Rain agrees with him, since the royal capital will beg for their help if they become the strongest party. He can't wait for the moment they refuse to help the nobles, and Alec thinks being the strongest party sounds better than guarding the prince. We see Misha bandaging a girl named Krista, and Stans notes that trouble for an S-ranked party means problems for the entire guild. So they gather all of the adventurers they can on short notice, and Stans tells them they need to form a group to rescue Krista's party called Rechroma, since they're stuck on the 64th floor. Meanwhile, Kara meets up with Alec, and she asks him why he isn't in the meeting, so he mentions that they just called for A-ranked adventurers. Kara heals his injuries and tells him to talk to her if something's bothering him, so he notes that he hasn't shaken the habits he picked up at the court, revealing that he's still scared to use his powers. She pats his head to calm him down, while Rain and Yora arrive, telling him Stans has recruited them for a rescue mission. They give him the details and mention that they can't use healing magic on the 64th floor, so they need potions. Alec is surprised that Kara agreed to go to such a place, so she notes that she was against it, but Rain's decision overruled her. She calls him an idiot for his decision-making, but he tells her to stop lying, since they decided to go there after a majority vote. They start fighting each other, while Yora tells Alec that they'll need his help to take down the floor boss, so it's up to him if they'll accept the mission, since he'll have the hardest job. He's fine with it even though he's worried that he's still rusty, so Rain notes that they should hurry before Stans and his party get to the dungeon. Kara is annoyed since it means they're just Stan's backup, but Alec doesn't mind it, since he already feels like an extra. They tell him it isn't true, because Stans told them they could only come if Alec is with them, which means they would be sitting at home without him. After that, they head to the dungeon, where they mention how their wish of going on adventures together is finally coming true. Alec apologizes for making them wait that long, but Rain explains that they waited for him because they wanted to, and notes that it's time for them to get their legend back on track. Rain mentions that if they try to go down to the 64th floor normally, they'll never make it in time, so Yora shows them a magic item, which lets them skip all the bosses. She mentions that they also have a core that lets them go down to the 52nd floor, but the one Krista gave them will let them go straight to the 64th floor. Alec wonders why they've been given such an important item, but she mentions that the other team was also given another core, and she notes that the boss of the 64th floor is undead. So they need Alec to fight it, and Rain tells him to conserve his energy since they can't defeat the boss without him. They teleport to the 64th floor, where they're immediately attacked by a group of skeletons, so Rain takes out his spear and starts attacking them. Alec is surprised to see that he has an artifact, and Kara mentions that it suits him since it's a spear that can't be broken. Alec feels weird since he isn't doing anything, and he asks Rain if he needs help, but he tells Alec to leave the weak monsters to him. Alec suddenly feels something behind him, so he fires a lightning attack, but he's surprised to see that nothing's there. He uses his mana sword to attack once again, which makes a Grim Reaper appear in front of him, so Rain notes that he's heard about the invisible monsters. He doesn't know how to deal with them, but he's sure that Alec can take care of it, and he's glad that he finally has people who depend on him. He jumps in the air and slashes the monster in half, causing it to turn to dust, but he asks his friends if they knew about the monster. So Yora apologizes to him, and Kara notes that she was against keeping it hidden from him, telling him he should blame Rain for everything. They get surrounded by skeletons, which excites Rain, so Yora reminds him they're on a rescue mission, but Kara mentions there's no point in telling him anything since he's an idiot. Rain and Alec start attacking the monsters, but Alec wants to take them all out at once, so he tells everyone to get behind him, and he destroys all of them with his lightning. Rain wonders why Alec only uses the Thunderbolt spell, so he mentions that it's because it's the quickest one he can use, but Rain refuses to believe him. The ground suddenly starts shaking, and they hear the floor boss, so Yora applies a boost spell on everyone, while Rain runs towards the voice to check it out. They follow him as well, and Alec praises Yora for her magic, which makes her happy. As they catch up to Rain, they see an adventurer named Loki, who's running away from the boss, and he asks Rain to help him. But he doesn't seem to care, since he knows that Loki isn't a good person, and he ends up falling to the ground, which makes Alec worry for his safety. But Kara calms him down, since she knows that it's the way Loki fights, and as the monster gets close to him, it steps into his trap and gets hit with fire magic. So he starts laughing at it, but he's shocked when it shoots a fire breath at him, and Rain manages to save him before he gets hit. The monster turns its attention to Alec, and it tries to crush him, so Yora protects him with her shield. It starts running towards Rain and Loki, so Alec hits it with his Thunderbolt, but it still keeps chasing them. Rain suddenly starts running towards the others, and he throws Loki towards Kara, so Yora tells her to get him to safety. Rain tells Yora to give them orders, so she mentions that they'll stall the monster, while Alec finishes it off. Yora applies a support spell on Rain, who rushes towards the boss, and it tries to smash him to the ground, but he dodges the attack and hits it with his spear. The monster still manages to send him flying, and it's about to crush him, but Yora protects him with her shield. Alec prepares his magic circles to attack it, which impresses Loki, because he knows that only genius mages can cast 5 spells at once, but he's shocked when Alec uses 20 spells at the same time. Rain stabs the monster's tail, while Alec uses all the magic circles to blast it with lightning, but it still isn't enough to defeat the monster. It prepares to shoot its fire breath, so Kara attacks it with her arrow rain, which pushes it to the ground, while Yora binds it with her chains. Rain stabs the monster's head with his spear, while Alec activates his sealing spell, but he's surprised to see how calm it is considering the situation. It still prepares to shoot its fire breath, but Alec thinks it made the wrong decision, since he has a special skill that only he and Eldis can use. He reflects the flames back at the monster, causing it to explode, but it still refuses to stay down. It once again prepares to attack him, but he burns it with an inferno, while Rain slashes its head in half. They celebrate their victory, but Loki interrupts them and mentions that he knows who Alec is. He notes that there are rumors that he's the mage who defeated a Hydra, and there are people who think it isn't true, but Loki believes in Alec since he has seen how powerful he is. Alec reveals that he is no longer a court magician, which shocks Loki, and he thinks the court is stupid for letting him go. Loki thanks Yora for helping him, and he assures her that his captain will repay her, but she mentions that he never does anything on his own. He asks them to give him potions as well, since he gave everything he had to his party, and he notes that they must still be fighting the tougher floor boss, which surprises everyone. They realize there are two floor bosses, and he mentions that he was ordered to distract the one with the lower IQ, so Kara thinks it was the perfect job for him. He reveals that the second floor boss is like a knight covered in black armor, but there might be nothing inside it, which means the monster could be the armor itself. He thinks physical attack won't damage it, and he gives Alec an artifact that transforms into a weapon, telling him he needs it to fight bosses on the deeper floors. Rain finds Loki sus, since he never gives away items for free, and Yora thinks he's trying to turn Alec into a frontline fighter. He tells Alec to stop using magic in exchange for the artifact, which surprises them since they're about to fight an undead boss. But Loki mentions that he likes to pull every nasty trick in the book, and he notes that he has a plan. Meanwhile, we see Regulus and his party running away from the monsters on level 30, and he tells Lenny to attack them with her spell, but she fails to do anything since her magic isn't working. He calls his companions useless, and tries to defeat the monsters with his sword skills, but they easily knock him down. His party members decide to retreat, and as they carry him away, he wonders why he can't even defeat a level 30 monster. He realizes that he's been struggling ever since he fired Alec, so he thinks Alec must have cursed him, and he blames him for what's happening. After that, Regulus goes to a man named Vogan, who assures him that he isn't cursed, but he refuses to believe it. He knows that if Vogan is telling the truth, it would mean everything that happened was his fault, but he thinks it's impossible, and he's convinced that he's cursed. He can't believe he couldn't get past level 30, so Vogan mentions that it's because he can't use support magic there, but Regulus notes that he doesn't need such things, since only cowards use it. He thinks that if Alec didn't curse him, he must have done something else, but Vogan is surprised that Alec didn't tell Regulus that he can't use magic on level 30. He wonders why he's asking about Alec, so he notes that it's because Alec is one of the legendary students who cleared level 68, but he tells Vogan that it's just a rumor that the commoners started. A man tells Regulus that the king has summoned him, and as they go to see him, he asks Regulus if he's heard about Eldis, but he has no idea who Eldis is. So the king notes that he's a court magician he banished from the kingdom, since he was a complete idiot. We learn that he told the king that if he didn't change the state of the court, their kingdom would fall into a predicament that can't be undone. So Regulus thinks he deserves to be banished for looking down on royals, and the king mentions that after Eldis lost his status as a noble, he went to the Magic Academy as a commoner. He impressed everyone with his skills, and he used his privilege as the top graduate to come back as the court magician. He went missing after a year, but during the time he spent in the castle, he would say strange things that made a lot of people dislike him. He even tried to convince the king to change his opinion about commoners, since they are worthless, revealing that one of them saved his life. The king asks Regulus if he knows why he sent him to the dungeon, and he thinks it was to make sure he gained experience. But the king tells him he's wrong, revealing that he wanted to know if Eldis was right, and thinking it's time to change the kingdom. Regulus doesn't understand what he's trying to say, so he thinks about changing the civilian employment system to make sure every talented person is evaluated equally, no matter what their origin is. Regulus doesn't think it's wise, since the king taught him that it's a disgrace to get help from a commoner, and he mentions that his injuries are proof that the king is wrong. He notes that everything that happened to him was because of Alec, but the king shows him the notes that Alec tried to deliver, and Regulus is shocked to see that it's a guide on how to beat level 30. He mentions that he isn't feeling well, so he decides to leave, and the king tells Vogan to take care of him. Regulus leaves the room, and he starts crying as he realizes that Alec wasn't useless, and he thinks he was so incompetent that Alec never told him the truth. Meanwhile, Alec notes that artifacts have enchantments, but it's impossible to defeat an undead monster without using magic, since they're immune to physical attacks. Rain tells Loki to stop bossing them around, but he calms them down, and mentions that he doesn't want Alec to stop using magic during the whole fight. So Yora realizes that he's trying to make the monster think Alec is a fighter, and Kara mentions that it isn't a bad idea, but she thinks there's no point in playing mind games with a monster. So Loki reveals that it possesses intelligence, which surprises them, and they find it hard to believe until they can see it with their own eyes. He notes that he isn't trying to order them around, and he just tells Alec to fight without using magic until he gives the signal, so Alec agrees with his plan. He also asks Kara to help him with teleportation magic, so she reminds him that it's a national secret magic, but he thinks it doesn't matter if no one finds out. As they start working on a magic circle, Alec wonders what kind of person Loki is, so Yora mentions that they can't trust him, but they can still rely on him. She reveals that a few years ago, he was the commander of a search party in a dangerous dungeon, and everyone returns safely thanks to him. He decides to believe in Loki, and he challenges Rain to a sparring match, but he thinks Alec has lost his touch, so he promises to go easy on him. Loki is surprised to see how close they are, even though they're teaming up after 4 years, so Kara notes that it's because they've known each other for a long time. As they activate the magic circle, Loki mentions that they can only teleport to places that have been marked, and he tells them to be on guard. Rain feels nostalgic even though they have an extra with them, so Loki jokes that their team would have been perfect if Rain weren't there. They teleport in front of the boss, and they see 2 members of Loki's party fighting it, but none of their attacks work against it. Rain rushes towards it, but it blocks his spear, and Alec tries to ambush it from behind, so it jumps in the air to dodge his attack. They continue clashing with each other, and as the monster jumps again to avoid Rain's attack, he stabs its robe to hold it in place, while Alec slices off its head. They think the fight is over, but the monster keeps moving even though its head has been removed, and it lunges at Alec, who struggles to block its attack. He realizes that it has become stronger and faster, which means it was holding back earlier, and Yora buffs Rain to increase his strength. He thrusts his spear towards the monster, and it blocks his attack, but Alec uses the chance to hit it with his sword, and it crashes to the ground. The monster gets back up and puts on his head, and it sends Alec flying, but Yora summons her shield to stop him from smashing into the wall. Loki notes that they need to stall it for 5 minutes, so Alec drinks a potion and goes back to fight it, but as Yora tries to go with him, Loki tells her to help him instead. Rain drinks his last potion, and as they continue fighting the monster, he mentions that he was excited to see Alec after 4 years, but Rain wonders why he's always making a boring face. He asks Alec what happened to him, and even though he tells Rain to mind his own business, he refuses to stop until he finds out the truth. So Alec mentions that he wanted to repay Eldis by changing the court, which is why he became a court magician, but he wasn't able to do anything. Rain thinks the sentiment is all that matters, and the fact that he stayed at the court for 4 years is already impressive in his eyes, which makes Alec cry. Loki suddenly activates a huge magic circle, so the monster rushes towards him and slashes his body, but it turns out it was just an illusion to lure the monster into an ice trap. Kara teleports Rain behind the monster, and he hits it with his spear, while one of Loki's party members named Mabel tries to attack it with her sword. It dodges her attack, but it steps into another ice trap placed by Loki, so it becomes angry and rushes toward him. He tries to fool it once again, but it sees through his illusion and attacks his real body, so he blocks it with his magic sword. Another one of his party members named Ruel sees that Yora is supporting Loki with a 7-layer spell, but he still thinks Loki won't be able to hold the monster back. But he's surprised when she uses her binding spell to restrain the monster, and it still manages to hit Loki, but as he's falling to the ground, he tells Alec to show everyone his true power. While Yora continues to hold the monster, and Alec surrounds it with magic circles, Loki is impressed, since he's using more than he used to defeat the last boss. He blasts the monster with his thunderbolt, but it starts to break free, and Rain can't believe it's still alive. Alec tries to create more magic circles, but he reaches his limit, and Loki isn't surprised that he's running out of mana, since he already cast so many spells. He recalls how Regulus fired him, but his friends welcomed him to their party since they believed in him, so he doesn't want to let them down. He goes beyond his limit, and combines his magic circles to summon a lightning beast, and everyone thinks it's insane. The monster breaks the chains and rushes forward, but the beast overpowers it, and crushes it with its fangs. Alec falls to the ground, but he's happy that he was able to protect his friends, and they tell him they're glad to have him back. Rain reminds him about their game, where the person who goes down first loses and gets a penalty, and Alec realizes that Rain let him fall so that he could win the game. But he knows that the game wasn't fair for Alec, so he decides to go easy on him, telling him to talk to them whenever he has a problem as his penalty. Loki's party joins them, and Ruel thanks him for saving them, while Mabel invites him to explore another dungeon with her, but Yora tells her he already has a party. Loki notes that he's the most talented mage he's ever met, and he knows that they couldn't have defeated the boss without Alec and his friends, so Rain and Kara think he owes them. Loki agrees to repay them and asks Alec if he wants a recommendation, but he has no idea what that is, so Rule explains that he needs it to get promoted to S rank. He promises to take care of it, and Rain decides to believe in him since he's nothing like Loki, who realizes that nobody trusts him. Rule thanks Alec once again before bidding him farewell, and his party celebrates since they were able to complete their mission. Alec returns to Misha, who can't believe his party defeated the Floor 64 boss, and she notes that Stans didn't even make it there in time. She gives him his reward, and he prepares to leave, but Stans stops him, telling him he has a visitor. He sees Vogan waiting for him, and he asks Alec why he didn't teach Regulus how weak he is, so Alec explains that he was in no position to lecture him. Vogan reveals that he replaced Alec, but he hates his job, since he's always babysitting Regulus. He notes that Regulus got injured after he went to Floor 30, but he has already recovered, and he's now looking for Alec. Vogan notes that he's waiting in the underground arena, and Alec wants to meet him, so Vogan takes him there. He notes that Regulus appears to be full of himself, and Alec thinks it's normal for nobles to have a sense of pride, but Vogan notes that he's also a noble, and he's nothing like Regulus. They see him at the arena, and he reveals that he was waiting for Alec, telling him the king wants to change the kingdom, so the nobles will start working with commoners. But Regulus isn't happy about it, since he thinks they aren't equals, and he knows that Alec will never understand how he feels, since he's just a commoner. He admits that he doesn't understand Regulus, but he tells him his mindset is wrong, since he never listens to commoners, even if they know better. Regulus refuses to change, and he prepares to fight Alec, saying he'll prove that the nobles don't need to work with commoners. He charges at Alec, who realizes that he's using twin blades, and he recalls that he told Regulus to use them, since a longsword is too heavy for him. Alec dodges his attacks, and he falls as he loses his balance, while Alec asks Vogan if he convinced Regulus to fight him. So he explains that he told Regulus to prove that he's better than Alec, since he didn't want to accept that Alec is stronger than him. He gets back up, and continues to attack Alec, as Vogan reveals that he taught Regulus how to fight with his twin blades, since he was determined to defeat Alec. He charges in and uses his special move, but Alec blocks it and pushes him back. Regulus asks him if his support magic is the reason why he was able to defeat powerful monsters, and he admits that he can't clear Floor 30 no matter how hard he tries. But he read the report Alec left for him, and it made him angry since it's so perfect, saying it even took his personality and actions into account. He thinks it's proof that Alec is a genius, but he needs to prove that he's better than him, since Alec is just a commoner. He activates his artifact, since Regulus wants him to fight seriously, and he tells Alec that they were sent to the dungeon, since his father wanted to see the strength of a commoner. Regulus notes that they were both used for the experiment, but Alec realizes that it's the reason why the king treated him like a person, and he notes that the 4 years he spent as court magician weren't wasted. He tells Regulus to prepare himself, and he charges in with his sword, but Regulus freaks out and closes his eyes. His weapons fall to the ground, but he realizes that Alec spared his life, so he wonders why Alec didn't strike him down, because he knows that he never treated him well. He admits that he doesn't know what to do, since he always believed in himself, but he now knows that he isn't a skilled warrior. He asks Alec for his advice, and he's happy to hear this, since Regulus has finally decided to listen to a commoner. He apologizes for everything he did to Alec, who admits that he doesn't know how to respond to his question, and he tells Regulus that he's the only one who can answer it. Alec offers to help him up, but he refuses to take his hand, and tells him he has already cooled off. Regulus tells Vogan to give him the court magician's robe, and he returns it to Alec, while Vogan shows him a letter from the king, which mentions that the position is open for him. But he refuses to return as the court magician, since his new party has a rule against leaving, and he mentions that he doesn't want to leave them. He tells Vogan to thank the king for him, since he enjoyed the 4 years he spent as court magician, but Regulus returns his robe anyway, and tells Vogan it's time to head back to the capital. He thinks Alec is an idiot for rejecting the king's kindness, and Alec mentions that he's just a useless commoner, so Regulus calls him a fool. Alec notes that they finally agree on something, but Regulus smiles as he leaves, and they're both happy with the way things turned out. Alec asks his friends to show him around Fazell, but Rain notes that he can't do it since he isn't feeling well, and Kara mentions that she needs to do something important. They both leave the room, but Yora realizes that they're trying to help her, and Alec asks her to give him a tour around the town, so she agrees to do it. She takes him to the market, where they see merchants selling equipment and items for adventurers, but she warns him to be careful, since there are scammers everywhere. But she ends up buying junk from them, and one of them shows her a strange stone, claiming that it's a medicine that can help her fight for days without sleeping. She immediately believes him, but Alec pulls her away. They reach a cafe, where they decide to take a break, and Alec wonders why Rain and Kara don't like Loki, so Yora tells him that Rain is careless and sloppy, but he always takes care of his weapon. They recall how he always cleaned his spear after their dungeon trips, and he didn't want to replace it, since he trusted it with his life. But Yora reveals that 2 years ago, he fought a floor boss to save an A-rank party, and he ended up getting injured. Rechroma helped them defeat it, and Rain tried to pretend that he didn't get hurt, but his legs gave out on the way home, and he passed out, so Loki and Riwil carried him back. But Loki thought his spear was useless, so he threw it away, and Rain was angry when he learned about it, but Loki told him that weapons are disposable, which made him even more upset. Yora adds that Loki plans things out, while Rain uses his instincts to get out of trouble, so she thinks they'll never get along. Alec wonders why Kara also doesn't like Loki, so Yora notes that she finds him annoying, and even thinks he's a troublemaker. Alec and Yora continue to walk around the town, and they see a rare item that boosts magic power, so Yora wants to buy it. But she realizes that she can't afford it, so Alec buys it for her, and she promises to treasure it. They continue to enjoy their time together, and as they watch the sunset, Alec notes that he likes Fazelle, since it makes him feel like a real adventurer. Yora wonders if he still wants to be in her party, since she thinks he wants to return to the capital, but he tells her he wants to stay with his friends and make their party the strongest. She's happy hearing this, and notes that he's the type who always keeps things to himself, so she's glad that he's finally speaking his mind. He tells her he wants to talk about his true feelings, so she becomes flustered and prepares to kiss him, but he explains that since he lost his game to Rain, he's no longer allowed to keep things to himself. He realizes that she's upset, so he asks her what's wrong, but she tells him it's nothing and curses Rain. The next day, Rain wakes Alec up and realizes that he's been studying all night. Rain tells him to get ready, since an adventurer's day starts early, so he dresses up and asks Rain if he wants to start the usual way. They have a sparring match, and Yora tells them it's too early to fight, but Alec notes that he needs to catch up to his friends, since he's been away for 4 years. Rain manages to break his sword, so Alec admits defeat, but Rain challenges him to fight with his artifact, and they're about to clash, but Yora tells them to stop before someone gets hurt. Loki suddenly joins them and offers to give them advice, so they start walking away, but he reveals that he gave them an S-rank recommendation. They realize it's an S-rank ID, but he refuses to give it to them unless Rain begs for it, so Krista hits him and apologizes for his behavior. She gives them the ID, and Riwil notes that Rechroma has recommended their party to the Guildmaster, so they've been promoted to S-rank. She tells Alec that S-rank parties are allowed to access the Arcana dungeon, and Riwil notes that it's a challenging dungeon, which is even more dangerous than Floor 64. They tell Alec to call them if he needs help, since they still feel like they owe him for saving them, but Loki suddenly invites everyone to celebrate. Yora and Kara tell everyone he's going to treat them, so he notes that he needs to leave to attend a meeting, but Krista reveals that he's lying, so they drag him away. They head to a tavern, where they start drinking together, and Alec can't believe that their party is already S-rank. Rain tells him to stop doubting himself, and notes that they're just getting started, but Loki isn't happy with what's happening, since everyone keeps ordering the most expensive drinks. After that, we see that Yora is already drunk, and Kara tells Alec she's happy, since he chose to stay with them instead of returning to the capital. But Misha suddenly calls Kara, and tells her they need her help. She heals wounded adventurers, and Misha thanks her for helping them, telling her their healers were overwhelmed since a lot of people got injured. She wonders what happened to them, so Misha reveals that they were attacked by criminals from the Shadow Guild, and Stan shows Kara an injured adventurer named Olivia. She realizes that Olivia is in terrible condition, so she needs to treat her all night, but Olivia suddenly grabs onto her, and Kara asks her if she remembers what happened. Olivia mentions that she needs to find a traitor, and tells Kara to heal her so that she can jump into action, but she tells Olivia that she needs time to recover. She tries to act tough, but she suddenly collapses, so Kara starts treating her wounds, and she realizes that Olivia has a lot of old scars, which prove that she has survived countless battles. Kara knows that she's from the Nameless Party, and she's one of Fizel's best sword fighters, so Kara wonders who did this to her, and uses her healing spell on her. The next day, we see Alec at the library, where he checks out the records of the Arcana dungeon, but a boy named Lurg suddenly interrupts him. He reveals that he knows Alec, who asks him what he can do for him, so Lurg notes that he wants special parfaits at the cafe. They decide to go there, and Lurg eats a lot of parfaits, but Alec tells him to get to the point, since he feels like he's getting pranked. Lurg reveals that he's a member of the S-rank party called Nameless, and notes that he's heard about how Alec's party reached S-rank after he joined them. So he wanted to meet him, and he thinks Alec is a perfect fit for their next job, so he invites him to join his party for a raid in the Labyrinth dungeon. Kara visits Olivia, and realizes that she's already practicing her swings, so Kara tells Stans to stop her, but he explains that she won't listen to him. So Kara tells her to lie down since she's still injured, and Stans wonders who attacked her, but she refuses to answer his question, and tells Kara to heal her leg. She tells Stans to leave the room, and heals Olivia's leg, telling her she'll be able to walk soon, but she still needs time to recover. She apologizes for being rude to Kara, and promises to repay her, but she suddenly kisses Olivia's forehead, telling her it's a charm that will help her relax. She recalls how her mother used to do that to cheer her up, and she tells Kara she's thirsty, so she gives Olivia tea. She notes that she's also hungry, so Kara leaves to get food for her, but Olivia puts a drug in her cup. Meanwhile, Alec tells his friends about Lurg, and we learn that he still hasn't accepted his offer. Rain notes that Lurg looks like a boy, but he's actually older than all of them, and Alec is surprised to hear this, so Yora reveals that he's an elf. Alec recalls how he mentioned that the Nameless will be heading to floor 72, and their plan is to clear it quickly so that they can grab the dungeon core from the last floor. He wants Alec to come in at the end, telling him he can keep the core, and Lurg reveals that the Nameless is in a hurry, since they want to make the Shadow Guild pay for hurting their friend. Alec realizes that Lurg wants him to handle the dungeon, so that he can take down the Shadow Guild, and he gives Alec a core for floor 72. Rain doesn't trust him, since his offer seems too good to be true, but Yora doesn't think Lurg will set them up, since he's the one who keeps Nameless together. Rain takes the core, and he knows that Olivia is also from the Nameless, so they decide to visit her. But Misha tells them that something happened to Kara, and they realize that she isn't feeling well, since Olivia drugged her. She thinks Olivia went back to the labyrinth, and notes that she isn't fully healed yet, so the Shadow Guild will kill her if they see her. Rain thinks she'll be fine, since she's an S-rank sword fighter, and he tells Kara to calm down, since she isn't acting like her usual self. She notes that Olivia said something about a traitor, so she knows that someone's helping the Shadow Guild, and she's determined to save her, saying she'll go alone if she has to. But she realizes that her friends won't let her go alone, and Rain tells her they were planning to raid the labyrinth anyway, so they can find Olivia while they're at it. They head to the labyrinth, and Yora notes that it has teleporters everywhere, but Mabel suddenly joins them, and tells them she went there since she's also looking for Olivia. She offers to tag along, and reveals that Lurg asked her to join the raid, since the Nameless needs someone to take Olivia's place. She notes that they're both S-ranked sword fighters, but she suddenly touches Alec, and mentions that she wants to see his magic again. So Yora becomes upset, and tells her they don't need her, since their party cares about the team dynamic. Rain explains that the Nameless act like 4 solo adventurers, who only work together when they're dungeon diving, and Mabel notes that Olivia is a stoic type, but she's actually a kind person at heart. In a flashback, we see Olivia practicing her swings, but she wonders why Mabel is hanging out with her, so she explains that it's because they're friends. Olivia notes that she prefers to be alone, and reveals that she only joined the Nameless to clear dungeons, but Mabel invites her to go on a dungeon raid. So Olivia agrees to go with her, and Mabel looks forward to seeing her at the central dungeon tomorrow. Back in the present, Mabel reveals that Olivia showed up for the dungeon raid, and Yora refuses to let her tag along, but she begs everyone to find Olivia. After she leaves, Rain gives Alec a bracelet, and tells him not to lose it since it's their secret weapon. They enter the labyrinth, and Kara sets down the teleportation circles, so that they can reconnect in case a trap splits them up. But Rain mocks her for behaving like a little girl at the guild, so she kicks him away, and he ends up activating a trap. Alec rushes to his side, but he also triggers a trap, and they both get teleported away. Alec finds himself surrounded by monsters, so he blasts them with his thunderbolt, but one of them is about to hit him from behind. So Kara shoots it down, and explains that she was able to reach him because of their bracelets. She reveals that they're called Mobius rings, and they come in pairs, which prevent two people from getting separated. She tells him not to worry about Yora, since she's with Rain, and she thinks they'll be fine since he's a capable fighter. Alec and Kara cut down the monsters, and they explore the labyrinth, but they stop as they see a bandage on the ground, which makes them realize that Olivia is nearby. We cut to Rain and Yora, who are running from a group of monsters, and Yora uses her magic to create an earth wall. She tells Rain to aim for their boss, so he rushes forward, while she buffs him with her spell. He charges past the monsters, and slices off their boss's head, so they panic and run away. She praises him for defeating the monsters, and he notes that he deserves the compliment, but tells her to help Alec get his confidence back. They stop as they see a monster's corpse, and they realize it's a floor boss, but Yora wonders who defeated it in one slash. So Rain tells her that only one person can do that, and notes that it's the Blade Master Mal. We see Mal talking to the boss of the Shadow Guild, who's impressed that Olivia didn't stand a chance against him, and he explains that he knows how she fights since they know each other. The boss wonders why Mal is working with them, so he explains that it's because they share the same goal, but notes that his wish is different, since he just wants to get stronger. The members of the Shadow Guild reveal that there are intruders on floor 72, and Mal hopes that the person he's looking for is among them, but the boss orders his men to get rid of them. Alec and Kara find Olivia, who tells them their timing is perfect, since she needs someone to heal her. But Kara refuses to help her, since she knows that Olivia will just run off again, and Alec notes that he isn't a healer. He explains that Kara wants to take her back, since she's worried about her, but Olivia tells them not to get in her way, and apologizes to Kara since she can't repay her. Kara tells her she doesn't understand healers, since they don't ask people to repay them, and Alec stops her from escaping, while Kara asks her why she returned to the labyrinth. So she explains that she needs to settle things with the traitor, who happens to be her master, and she blames him for her mother's death. She activates a teleporter, so Kara rushes to get to her, and they all get teleported away, but they realize that they're in a monster nest. Alec charges in, and Olivia wants to join him, but Kara tells her to wait and heals her. She notes that it will take time to prepare the teleport spell they need to escape, and Alec is vastly outnumbered, so Olivia realizes that he needs her help. He struggles to defeat an ogre, since he can't hit its weak spot, but she instantly cuts it down, and he's amazed because he didn't even see her move. Kara notes that her teleport is almost ready, but it suddenly gets dispelled, and Alec realizes that they can't use spells since there's a magic eater in the area. Olivia tells him he lacks practice, and as she continues to eliminate the monsters, Alec realizes that she's the opposite of Rain, since she's a cold and sharp fighter. He doesn't want her to underestimate him, so he fights on, and she notes that he has potential, but he still hasn't mastered his weapon, telling him to treat his sword like a part of his body. They hear a bell ringing, and she notes that they can't defeat all of the monsters, so they need to take down the magic eater to escape. He promises to deal with the monsters while she looks for it, and Kara tells her where to find it, but notes that there are too many monsters in the way. Olivia rushes towards them, and Alec thinks she's reckless, but she easily cuts them down. He distracts the other monsters, but one of them attacks him from above, and he manages to push it back. But it continues to attack him, and he struggles to defeat it since there are too many of them, so he rushes towards an ogre, and the monster crashes into it. He thinks it's done for, but it manages to recover, and he's impressed that it's still alive. Olivia slaughters the monsters in her path, and she sees the magic eater, so she stabs it and destroys its bell. Kara tells Alec they're ready to go, so he blasts the monsters with his thunderbolt, while Olivia rushes to get to her. She tells them to hurry, since the monsters have already found her, so Alec burns them, and tells Olivia to take his hand. They're able to escape, but she wonders why he didn't tell her that he's a mage, and notes that she looked silly giving him advice, since he isn't even a swordsman. But she thanks him for saving her anyway, and admits that she wouldn't have survived if she had gone there alone. Kara notes that she still hasn't fully recovered, so her wounds might reopen if she keeps fighting, and she asks her about her master. So Olivia reveals that when her mother passed away, she was left all alone, but Mal took her in and taught her how to wield a sword. He raised her like she was his own daughter, and she trusted him more than anyone in this world. But after she defeated a group of monsters in the dungeon, he suddenly attacked her. He thinks she's about to meet her end, so he tells her he wants her to know the truth before she dies, and reveals that he was the one who killed her mother. But she manages to survive the incident, and later learns that he was in the same party as her mother, so she can't believe she's spent years looking up to her mother's killer. She shows Alec and Kara the scar he gave her, and notes that he took everything from her, but Alec gives her his robe, telling her he was impressed by her way of fighting. He notes that he understands how she feels, since he knows what it's like to believe he has nothing left, but his friends showed him that he was wrong. She reveals that she has no friends, but he notes that Lurg wants to make the Shadow Guild pay for hurting her, and Kara tells her she can't change the past, but she can heal her whenever she gets injured. Olivia knows that Lurg and Mabel were trying to help her, but she thinks they have no idea how scary Mal is, so Alec tells her they'll fight in their place. We return to Rain, who mentions that he hates the dungeon, since there are traps everywhere, and Yora tells him to stop touching everything he sees. She wonders if Alec and Kara are okay, since she's worried that they might find the person who defeated the floor boss, but Rain tells her to be quiet, as he hears people approaching. The members of the Shadow Guild appear, and one of them eats a core as he approaches Yora and Rain, who think he must be crazy since people aren't supposed to eat cores. He realizes they're the intruders, so he orders his men to attack them, but they're no match for them, and Rain tells him the core he ate didn't make him stronger. He asks the man if they're looking for the dungeon core on the last floor, and he refuses to answer the question, but Yora uses her chains to torture him, so he admits that their boss ordered them to steal it. Yora asks him if he knows Mal, so the man reveals that he's working with them, but Rain knows that they aren't the ones in charge, and he suggests taking them to the guild. But they suddenly feel an earthquake, and the man reveals that he absorbed the dungeon core's power by eating it. The ground shatters as he unleashes his powers, and Yora loses consciousness, so he manages to break free. He takes her away, as he notes that he finally got what he was after, and Rain chases after him, as he notes that he'll take her to the bottom of the dungeon. We return to Alec, as he tells Olivia that he used to be a court magician, and he notes that he enjoys studying magic. She thinks he made the right decision by choosing to become an adventurer, but Kara notes that their friends aren't there yet, and reveals that they decided to meet there in case they got separated. They see a giant hole, and they think it looks unusual, but Olivia jumps in and finds Yora's hat, so they realize that she was there. Yora wakes up, and sees the man reporting to his boss Goro, who greets her and apologizes for the way the man treated her. She asks him why they didn't kill her, but he refuses to answer her question, and he's happy since she's starting to behave like a cornered animal. But Mal tells him not to touch her, and she recognizes him as the Blade Master. Rain suddenly appears above them, and he stabs the man from behind, so Goro takes out his weapon to defend himself. Rain realizes that he's using a mana sword, and we learn that the man is still alive, since the core he ate made his body stronger. He notices the Mobius ring Yora is wearing, so he removes it and tells her it won't save her, but Rain asks him what he meant when he said he got what he was after. But Goro just tells him to do his job, so he punches her to knock her out, and tells Mal they should get to work. Rain threatens to kill them if they touch her, but they just run away, and Goro stops him from chasing after them. He reveals that he's the Shadow Guild's most famous member, and he starts fighting Rain, who realizes that there's something strange about his weapon, but he knows that it isn't an artifact. He destroys it and impales Goro, but is surprised to learn that he's still alive, and he freaks out as he sees his blood. He reveals that he doesn't like Mal, since he does nothing but stand around all day, and he even acts like he's the boss. Rain readies his weapon, as Goro gets back up, and he suddenly starts chanting, as his blood returns to his body. He instantly recovers, and his blood repairs his sword, as he tells Rain that he's about to meet his end. Rain wonders what kind of magic he's using, since he's never seen it before, and he stabs him once again. But Goro tells him he never learns, and reveals that Rain's attacks can't kill him, since his blood magic makes him stronger whenever he gets hurt. He pushes Rain back and summons his whip, which he wraps around Rain's leg, and he smashes him to the ground. Goro thinks he's done for, so he starts mocking him, but Rain gets back up, and tells him it isn't over yet. He calls his artifact and it flies toward Goro, who easily dodges it, but Rain suddenly punches him away. In a flashback from 6 years ago, we see Rain preparing to fight Alec, who's using his magic sword, and he's surprised that Rain is only using his practice weapon. But he's confident that he can win the fight, since he's never lost a duel in the academy, and he starts fighting Alec, but he realizes that he's getting pushed back. Kara and Yora wonder if he'll lose for the first time, since his spear is no match for Alec's magic sword, and he starts spinning it around, but he accidentally drops it and it almost hits Rosa. He prepares to fight Alec with his fists, but she interrupts their duel, and scolds them for causing a mess. After that, Alec thinks Rain let his weapon go to distract him, and he explains that Rain's plan was brilliant, since magic swords drain the user's mana, so they're wide open if they lose focus. Rain pretends that he didn't accidentally drop his weapon, and calls himself a genius, but Alec thinks he's just putting pressure on himself. Back in the present, Rain continues to attack Goro, as he notes that Alec is a genius when it comes to offensive magic, while Yora has talent for support magic, and Kara specializes in healing. He admits that he can't even use a single spell, but he notes that he's a genius when it comes to fighting, and he knocks Goro down, telling him his blood magic won't help him if he beats him to death. But Goro gets back up, and uses his spell to summon a vortex, which he uses to attack Rain. We cut to Lurg, as Stans asks him why he chose Alec as his raid partner, so he explains that it's because he heard rumors about him. He wonders if it's true that Alec can use all 5 elements, and Stans thinks it's unlikely, saying he won't believe it unless he sees it for himself. He also doesn't believe that Alec set the floor 68 record at the dungeon in the capital, but Mabel suddenly interrupts them, and notes that Olivia went into the labyrinth alone. She tells them not to worry, since Alec and his friends have already gone after her, but Stans notes that his plan has been ruined, revealing that he was waiting for the perfect chance to attack the Shadow Guild. He asks her if Alec can use all 5 elements, and she notes that she only saw him use fire and lightning, so Lurg wonders if they're the only elements he can use. But Stans thinks he might be hiding his powers, and notes that they should look for him in the labyrinth, since he knows that the place is dangerous. We return to Rain, as he's about to get burned, but Alec suddenly arrives to save him, and uses his reflect spell to send the flames back. Rain tells him his timing is perfect, and he's glad to see Kara and Olivia, but he realizes that Goro is still alive. Olivia knows that he's using blood magic, which is incredibly difficult to deal with, and Rain tells everyone that Yora has been kidnapped. He notes that the Blade Master is working with the Shadow Guild, which surprises Olivia, but Kara wonders why they took Yora. Rain tells the others to look for her while he deals with Goro, but Kara suddenly hits him, and uses her healing spell to help him recover. She takes his bracelet, and tells Alec to help him defeat Goro, who summons his flames to attack them, but Alec uses his reflect spell once again. Kara and Olivia run past Goro, and Rain recalls his spear, telling Alec that Goro is no match for his reflection magic. We see Stans and the others in the dungeon, as they talk about the demon cultists in the Shadow Guild, who have seals in their bodies. We learn that their leaders are called Tile Bearers, and Stans notes that they're dangerous since they're willing to sacrifice anything to get stronger. Goro activates his sorcery seal, which causes his body to transform, and he suddenly bites Rain. But Alec summons his lightning, so Goro jumps away, and he manages to dodge Alec's thunderbolts. He realizes that Goro's speed is insane, so he creates a huge magic circle above him, and blasts him with his lightning. Goro bleeds as he screams in pain, but he uses his magic to turn his blood into mana, and explains that Alec's attacks can't kill him, since he won't die unless he runs out of blood. He uses his blades to attack, so Alec creates a barrier to block them, and Goro manages to destroy it. But Rain suddenly appears behind him, so Goro attacks him and starts overpowering him, as Rain realizes that he can't keep up with his speed. Goro starts mocking him again, since he called himself a genius fighter, but he's no match for him. As Rain falls to the ground, Goro reveals that he's a title bearer, since he has the ability to surpass his limits. He threatens to kill Rain if Alec tries anything, but Rain suddenly stabs him, and burns the tip of his spear. In another flashback, we see Rain fighting a boy, who easily defeats him, and tells him he'll never win against a genius. Rain promises to surpass him, and he trains hard to get stronger, but one day, he realizes that the boy has fallen ill. He's angry that they'll never be able to fight again, since he wanted to defeat him, so the boy tells him he can consider himself the winner, and start calling himself a genius. Back in the present, Rain continues to fight Goro, and blows a hole into his chest, as he notes that he'll always be a genius no matter what anyone says. We cut to Mal as he reaches the end of the labyrinth with the man who took Yora, and they open a huge door which leads them to the lowest point of the dungeon. They climb up the stairs, and they see the dungeon core, and as the man takes it, he notes that he has finally found what he was looking for. We return to Rain, as Alec uses his ignition spell to set him on fire, and he attacks Goro with his burning spear. He manages to cut Goro's arm, and notes that he can't heal since the flames burned up his blood, but the ignition spell wears off. Alec uses it again, and Rain overpowers Goro, as he notes that he never surpassed the person he looked up to, so he wants to prove his friend's strength by defeating all of his opponents. He launches a barrage of attacks, which cuts Goro's body into pieces, and Rain thanks him for putting up a good fight. Meanwhile, the man tells Yora he has the dungeon core, but Mal suddenly attacks him, and tells him he's sick of listening to him. He notes that he no longer needs the Shadow Guild, since he already has the core, and he calls Yora a seeker, but she has no idea what he's talking about. So he tells her that a seeker should be able to see Eden, which is the land where dungeon cores grant wishes, but she notes that she's never heard of it. The man tells Mal that the Shadow Guild will make him pay for betraying them, but he reveals that it's exactly what he wants, and he cuts the man down. We learn that he's looking for a worthy opponent, but nobody wants to fight him since he's the Blade Master, so he decided to make enemies. Olivia suddenly calls out to him, and he tells her she should have stayed home, but Yora notes that she has more friends on the way. But he doesn't care, and notes that he looks forward to fighting Alec, since he finds him interesting. We return to Rain, as he drinks a potion to help him recover, and he notes that the Blade Master won't go down easily, since he sensed his bloodlust when he found the floor boss's body. He tells Alec to be careful if he fights Mal, but he just promises to return with the others, and tells him to wait for him there. Olivia charges at Mal, and tells him he'll pay for killing her mother, but she just runs past him and jumps away with Yora. Kara uses her arrow rain to attack him, but he easily blocks it, so Yora binds him with her chains, while Kara unleashes her ultimate move. He breaks free and slices through her magic, so Olivia tries to land a surprise attack, but he easily blocks it and pushes her back. She notes that she won't let anyone else take his head, since she wants to make him suffer for everything he did to her, but he's happy that she found some good friends. He knows that Kara and Yora are capable mages, but he thinks they're making Olivia weaker, and he reminds her about the most important lesson he taught her. In a flashback, we see Olivia crying because the other kids bullied her, but Mal tells her it's okay, since loneliness makes a person stronger. He notes that she'll become stronger than anyone if she embraces her loneliness, and she tells him she wants to be as strong as him, so she trains as hard as she can. Back in the present, Mal blocks Olivia's attacks, and she tells him he has no idea how she felt her entire life, since she never stopped training just to surpass him. But he easily defeats her, and Kara aims for his head, but he destroys her arrow, and tells her it was weaker than her last attack. He reminds Olivia that loneliness will make her stronger, and he tries to cut Kara and Yora down, so Olivia protects them. But she falls to the ground, so Kara tries to heal her. Olivia admits that she's weak, but notes that she doesn't want to get stronger if she needs to abandon her friends, and Alex suddenly appears. He clashes with Mal, and Alec wonders why he made Olivia suffer, so he explains that it's because she's weak. He dodges Alec's attack, and wonders why he's fighting with a sword, since he's supposed to be a magician. Mal tells him to use his strongest spell, so he summons his lightning beast, and orders it to attack Mal, but he manages to overpower it and cuts it down. Everyone can't believe what happened, but Mal realizes that he's bleeding, so he admits that Alec is the perfect adventurer, but notes that he isn't a good magician. Mal explains that he can't feel any desire to kill an Alec's magic, but he tells Mal to keep his eyes on him, and his friends realize that he's about to use his trump card. His mana starts flowing through his body, and Yora thinks about stopping him, but Kara tells her it's too late. He asks Mal if he knows about original spells, and admits that he can't defeat him in a straight-up fight, but he'll use his best spell to save Yora. He activates his limit break, and Mal is amazed since he's using the mana around him, but he knows that it's extremely risky. Yora notes that it's an original spell that only Alec can use, and he creates 5 magic circles, as he combines all of the elements to attack Mal. In a flashback, we see Alec and his friends talking about a Hydra, which can only be defeated by using all 5 elements at the same time. Rain thinks it's impossible, but Kara tells him to calm down, and Yora notes that Alec can use fire and lightning, so the 3 of them can support him using the other elements. But Rain reminds her that he can't cast spells, and he starts arguing with Kara, so she blasts him with her wind magic. Alec thinks he can use the mana around him so that he can cast spells infinitely, but Yora notes that he might get poisoned if he absorbs the wrong mana type. He still believes that his idea might work, but Kara and Yora are skeptical since there are over 10,000 types of mana in this world, and his body is only compatible with one of them. He decides to try it anyway, and his friends watch him as he starts practicing, while Yora notes that she believes in him, so she's sure that he'll find a way to do it. Back in the present, Alec uses his ultimate move, and Mal tries to cut through the elements, but he ends up getting injured. Alec follows up with a huge wind spell and traps Mal inside a whirlwind, but he laughs as he realizes that Alec is a worthy opponent. He manages to break free, but he praises Alec for his incredible skills, and he reveals that he feels truly alive when he's fighting someone who can kill him. Alec breaks one of his swords, so he throws it away, but he tells Alec he'll stop holding back, recognizing him as Eldis's apprentice. So Alec wonders if he knows Eldis, but he tells Alec to stop searching for him, and reveals that he knows how his mother died. He knows that Alec believes she died because of a plague, but he notes that it isn't true, so Alec wants to know what happened, but he refuses to tell him. He uses the dungeon core to boost his mana, and tells Alec to bring it on, since he knows that his limit break won't last long. We cut to Stans, who realizes that limit break is Alec's trump card, and Rain knows that it isn't an all-powerful technique, since it takes a toll on his body. He reveals that Alec can only use it for 10 minutes, and Stans knows that his body will break if he goes beyond the time limit, so Rain wants to help him, but he's too injured to do anything. Stans knows that even S-rankers would struggle against Goro, so he's impressed that Rain was able to defeat him, and he calls a priest named Cast, who uses his magic to trap Goro in his coffin. Stans thinks Alec is no match for Mal, and Mabel disagrees with him, since she thinks that sword fighters aren't able to counter spells. But Stans notes that Mal has the dungeon core on the lowest level, which greatly boosts his mana, and we learn that he can also use magic. We return to Mal, as he uses his mana blast to attack Alec, who tries to reflect it, but it breaks through his defenses, so Yori uses her magic to save him. Mal spams his mana blast, and Alec struggles to defend himself, but Olivia tells the others she has a plan. Alec notes that it's been 5 minutes since he activated his limit break, and he still struggles to keep up with Mal, so Yori uses all of her mana to bind him with her chains. He easily destroys them, but Alec uses the chance to cast his ultimate spell again, and he attacks Mal with everything he has. But he counters with his mana blast, which causes a massive explosion, and Alec realizes that he doesn't stand a chance. Kara tells him it's time to pull a monster nest, and he realizes that she's planning to use the magic eater, so he switches to his sword instead. Mal uses his mana blast again, but it's dispelled by the magic eater. Alec charges in, but Mal easily counters his attack, and notes that their plan is pointless, since Alec can't beat him without his magic. He drinks a potion to help him recover, and tells Mal not to get the wrong idea, since he isn't fighting alone. As they continue to clash, Alec gets pushed back, and Mal knows that his limit break is about to wear off. Alec remembers the advice Olivia gave him on how to wield a sword, and he continues to fight Mal, who continues to land hits on him, but he manages to cut his face. Mal notes that he has changed his opinion of Alec, since he now sees him as a master magician, and he charges in, but Olivia suddenly attacks him. She asks him why he taught her how to fight just to abandon her, and wonders why he isn't as strong as he used to be, so he promises to answer her questions if she defeats him. She continues to attack him, and he pushes her back, but Alec tells her not to give up, and he tells Mal to send a message to Eldis that he's now strong enough to defeat the Blade Master. He charges in with Olivia, but Mal blocks their attacks, and Alec's limit break wears off, so Mal prepares to finish him off. But Kara suddenly removes the magic eater, and we learn that it was all part of Olivia's plan, since she knew that Mal would be confused after they removed the magic eater. Alec sees an opening, and he hits Mal with his thunderbolt, but he notes that it isn't strong enough to defeat him. He prepares to counter with his mana blast, but Olivia stops his sword, and Alec blasts him with his thunderbolt. He realizes that Mal is still standing, but Kara hits him with her arrow, and he can't believe everything they did was just a distraction, so that she could land a direct hit. She threatens to kill him if he moves, but he gives her the dungeon core, and tells her to accept it as a reward for defeating him. Yora notes that the Shadow Guild wanted to capture her, since she has the power to find Eden, which is the land where wishes are granted. Mal reveals that dungeon cores have a will of their own, but only seekers can hear their voices, and he explains that the only way to find Eden is by gathering the dungeon cores with Adam's will. Alec reminds him that he promised to answer Olivia's questions, so he reveals that he used to be in a party with her mother, and he notes that she was a talented sword fighter. But she turned into a monster because of a disease called the Dungeon Syndrome, so he was forced to kill her, and he left the party to take care of Olivia. He decided to teach her how to fight, since she was as talented as her mother, but she started looking up to him, and he couldn't get over the fact that he killed her mother. He started to question his decision to kill her, since he thinks she wanted to see Olivia despite turning into a monster, and he believes that he can revive her if he finds Eden, so he decided to look for it. He reveals that it's the reason why he abandoned Olivia, and he tells her to finish him off, but Mabel arrives with Lurg, and she's glad to see that Olivia is okay. She explains that she doesn't want to execute him, and tells him he'll be arrested for his crimes, but he notes that she'll regret her decision, and the wounds of the past will destroy her. She tells him she can live with it, so he admits that she has gotten stronger, and he recalls the moments they spent together, so she starts to cry. Stans notes that Mal caused trouble for the guild, and tells him not to get Olivia involved in his problems, but he just tells Stans to do his job as the guild master. He orders Cass to capture Mal, and he asks Mal if he has any last words, so he tells Alec he did well, and Cass absorbs him into his coffin. Stans notes that he needs to head back, since he still has a lot of work to do, and he tells Olivia she owes the guild an explanation. She suddenly collapses, so Mabel becomes worried, and begs Kara to heal her, but Alec also passes out. Kara heals Olivia, who realizes that she's angry, so she admits that she's tired of healing everyone, and tells Olivia she's more reckless than Rain. But she tells Olivia she's partly to blame, since her friends know that she'll heal them no matter how badly they get injured, so it's why they're always reckless. Kara becomes upset hearing this, and she starts choking Olivia, so Lurg realizes that they've gotten close, but she wonders why he isn't mad at her, since her selfishness put their party in danger. So he explains that he doesn't care what she does, since they aren't like other parties that share common goals, and he thanks Alec for saving her. Kara wonders how they should split the dungeon core, and Yora thinks Lurg should have it, since his party spent years trying to clear the labyrinth. But he thinks they should keep it, since they were the ones who defeated Mal, and he tells them they need it to become the strongest. He gives it to Yora, but it suddenly starts glowing, and she passes out. She sees a vision of Eden, where a mysterious being tells her to gather the cores, so that she can eat the golden fruit and make a wish. Yora wakes up, and she realizes that Alec is still sleeping, since he hasn't recovered from the last fight. She tries to kiss him, but she realizes that Rain and Kara are also in the room, so she becomes embarrassed. Alec wakes up, and she tells them about her dream, but Kara wonders if it was the core that made her lose consciousness. Yora wants to see it, so Kara gives it to her, but they realize that nothing's happening. Alec knows that the Shadow Guild will look for her, but she tells him she wants to gather the cores, since there are things she wants to understand. Rain praises her spirit, and notes that they should defeat everyone who stands in their way, but Alec mentions that he can't use his magic anymore. Olivia is surprised to learn about it, so Alec explains that it's because he overused his limit break, but he notes that it's only temporary. He tells her to teach him how to wield a sword, since he knows that the Shadow Guild will try to take Yora, and Olivia asks her if she has any siblings. So she explains that she doesn't know, since her family's situation is complicated, and Olivia mentions that she heard the Shadow Guild mention a person named Guren, who might be related to her. Olivia believes he's working with the Shadow Guild, so she thinks they should look for him, and Alec tells Yora not to worry, since he'll get stronger so that he can protect her. After that, Misha learns that Alec wants to practice fighting against other people, so she tells him she has the perfect event for him. Alec leaves with his friends, and they head to a place called the Red Rogue, where a martial arts tournament will be held. We learn that the champion will receive a dungeon core as a reward, so Alec and his friends are excited to participate, and they all decide to do their best so that they can win. But that's where this video ends. Remember to like and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.